On a spring morning in Japan, a rapid commuter service train makes its last ever scheduled stop. Not even 3 minutes later, 107 people aboard this train would perish. The time is 6:11 a.m. The location is Osaka and Amagasaki, Japan. Many of the train lines in the area are operated by the West Japan Railway Company, or JR West for short. Its headquarters resides right here in Osaka, but our journey starts at the company's Haneten branch office, where 23-year-old Ruchiro Takami wakes up and takes the departure roll call by 6:21 to begin his workday. He makes his way to his allocated train, a 7-car 207 series electric unit, and after having completed the startup procedure at 6:48, he drives the train to Hanaten Station to pick up his first passengers of the day. Takami departs the train from the station under the number 218S on the Katamachi line to Matsui Yamata Station with no problems to report. From here, the train is driven as 5769M back towards Hanaten to Kiyobashi Station. During this trip, however, Takami accumulated 1 minute and 20 seconds of delay. The same train, now as 4469M, departs to Amagasaki Station 47 seconds behind schedule. On this route, just before Kashima Station entering a curve, the ATSP or Automatic Train Stop System was triggered, which applied full service braking. The train entered the curve just under the speed limit of 65 km/h. The train eventually made it to Amagasaki Station 50 seconds late. The train was scheduled to stop for 4 minutes and was able to leave the station on time, now heading to Takarazuka Station. During this leg of the train's journey, Takami had run a red light, causing the ATS to apply emergency braking, halting the train. Takami was supposed to report the incident to traffic control, which he didn't. The train arrives at Takarazuka Station 44 seconds late. Takami prepares the train to make its way back towards Amagasaki. Now, as 5418M, the train leaves the station 15 seconds late. While nearing Itami Station with a 34-second delay, Takami activates the brakes too late despite the warnings in the cab. He is forced to use the emergency brake after the train passes the stopping point. Having overshot the station by 72 meters and needing to back up, the train is now 1 minute and 20 seconds behind schedule. The conductor Masatoshi Matsushita, sitting at the other end of the train, was called by Takami on the inter-train phone. According to him, Takami said something along the lines of, "Will you forgive my mistake?" Matsushita wasn't able to answer, as a passenger had just knocked on his window, asking for an apology announcement, which he made. Moments later, he called traffic control to report the overrun. Their conversation was the following.
こちら指令どうぞ。合意準優勝車両の車掌です。どうぞ。518mm 車掌、内容どうぞ。行き過ぎですけれども、候補限界表示およそ8メートル行き過ぎて、運転手と打ち合わせの乗交代で1分半遅れで発車しております。どうぞ。候補限界を8メーター行き過ぎ、交代客載、遅れにつきましては。
Meanwhile, by driving on the edge of the speed limit, Takami was able to bring the train back under a minute behind. However, right here is where the brakes should have been applied at the latest, since just ahead is a curve with a 70 km speed limit coming up, and the train is currently traveling at 116.
何分でしょうか。どうぞ。1分半です。どうぞ。
It is at this point that the train enters the curve and no brakes have been applied still. 4 seconds later, traffic control would attempt to call Tamaki, but by then, it's too late. Rescue operations by the city fire department began as early as 6 minutes after the incident. The teams began work on the second car first, since they had not initially realized that the first car had been completely embedded into the building's parking lot. Out of the 92 souls on board this car, 43 had lost their lives, including the driver. The car had been destroyed to a near unrecognizable state. The second car had been crushed against the building. Of the 132 on board this car, 57 died. Out of the over 100 people on the third car, nearly all had sustained injuries and 3 passed away. The remaining cars had experienced no casualties, however, a total of 281 persons on them had been injured. An additional 4 souls from cars that weren't identified had passed away, bringing the total death count to 107 and the total number of injured to 562. How was this allowed to happen? The first key in understanding the cause of the disaster is to look at the train involved. The 207 series is a standard 7-car electric unit which the company owned hundreds of. With a top operating speed of 120 km per hour, great acceleration, braking, and a capacity of 1,115, the train was optimized for getting as large a number of people as possible from A to B in a timely manner. Hiroshi Kubota, an expert who once worked for the National Railways, told a newspaper that, quote, "The derailed train had heavy air conditioning systems atop the roof of the cars that are just as heavy as the bottom frames of the cars, that probably unbalanced the cars and made them prone to topple." This specific unit comprised of newer cars at the rear of the arrangement, which had many devices installed, including data recorders. These recorded the precise state of the control surfaces over the course of the day, like how Takami was late to start braking at Itami Station, or how he had only applied braking in the fatal corner once the train already entered the curve. The speed recorded in the corner was 116 km per hour, while the speed limit was 70. Simulations showed that the train would have derailed going at any speed above 106 km per hour. But if the train was approaching well over the speed limit, why did the ATS not trigger like it did previously in the day? The reason for this is that this line pictured in yellow here had the oldest ATS system installed by JR West. This old system did not have beacons in place for overspeed. Knowing this, the focus of the investigation of the accident became the driver. Why would someone be so fixated on trying to alleviate a delay as small as 1 or 2 minutes? Well, you see, when it comes to transportation, Japan is perfectionist. It has become a standard in the country for trains to always be perfectly on time. It is what the passengers expect. As this is the case, railway companies also time their trains to meet at hubs for a quick transfer. This was the exact case when someone asked Matsushita to apologize for the delay, since they knew that they would be late for a transfer at Amagasaki Station. Even still, why risk derailment? Just what consequences could there be for being late? This is where we will discover that Japan isn't as perfect as it seems from the outside. The perfectionism comes with a price, and it's not cheap. The troubling statistics of workers with mental health issues in Japan has been slowly moving into the foreground, but many are still not aware of the extent to which the average Japanese person is pushed to in their daily life. Take Takami for example. He had worked the previous day from 1 p.m. till 11 p.m. His co-workers at the Hanaten office said in an interview that he looked normal. Nothing seemed off or different about him. They were actually having a conversation about who was going to get better sleep, since some of them were waking up at 4 a.m. This was just before midnight. Takami was waking up at 6 and just like most of his co-workers, he skipped shower to have more time. For a train driver in Japan, this was a normal day. The real nightmare begins when you are assigned to retraining. Nikin Kyoikyu, literally translated to day shift education, is a retraining program JR West would make a driver take as a punishment for being late. But there was no retraining here. Instead, drivers would be subjected to severe verbal abuse and forced to write reports repenting their mistakes. Furthermore, they would be placed on weeding and grass cutting duties during the day. This program was seen by many as psychological torture. Takami himself had been on the program 3 times, and it is highly likely that leading up to the event of the crash, he was trying to avoid going back. You may have noticed in the call to traffic control that Matsushita had reported an overrun at Itami much shorter than in reality, hoping to ease the possible penalties for Takami. Unfortunately for him, when they were talking on the intertrain phone and Takami asked, "Will you overlook my mistake?" Matsushita wasn't able to answer due to the passenger knocking on his window. He said after the accident that Takami might have thought the phone was hung up because the conductor is mad. The official investigation concluded the direct cause of the accident to be the delay in applying brakes when entering the corner, and the indirect cause to be the company's driver management system and the avoidance of its disciplinary actions to divert the driver's attention from driving the train. At the time, the company thought that pursuing the individual's responsibility for an error would prevent recurrence, so we were carrying out disciplinary action and a retraining program that could be perceived as a penalty against personnel. This led to personnel directing their attention toward covering up and making excuses for errors, which resulted in a situation that opened the door to accidents, as opposed to preventing human errors. In June of 2005, 2 months after the accident, Masataka Ida, advisor of JR West who played a major role in enforcing the strict punctuality, resigned, followed by the company's chairman in August. The company hasn't brushed the accident under the carpet. Their website homepage also makes clear mention of the disaster they caused. Accountability is one thing, however, taking action is another. The company has supposedly undergone restructuring to focus on safety and the human factor, but I am not so sure that the Japanese mentality is that easy to get rid of. Is history bound to repeat itself? Has JR West gone through actual growth, or are their actions just window dressing? I don't know, but I can't help but wonder whether progress was made, or are we still living the world where 5418M rounded the curve successfully.